morning, I'm Jamie Sey. The Great Recession that started in 2008 still continues here in Central Florida. Are you surprised? But the fact is, there are thousands of families who are still recovering from the loss of a job or their house or both. You probably remember 60 Minutes coming to Central Florida to report on the impact of the recession on families here. The program showed the nation, our neighbors and their kids living in cars or packed into an extended stay motel room, or even worse. That one broadcast sparked an outpouring of support. We didn't like seeing our own struggle. But when the cameras went away, so did that massive community response. Nearly 5 years later, the crisis continues here. According to this new report, the current state of family homelessness in Central Florida, 1 in 50 families here in Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties will experience homelessness during the course of a year. That's too many. And thousands more families are one life event away from homelessness. So a job loss or a medical crisis, a divorce, or even a car accident could put one of our neighbors on the street. So what do we do? Here to talk with me about the family homelessness crisis is Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Thank you for being here. In addition to her full-time job, Mayor Jacobs is also the co-chair of the Central Florida Commission on Homelessness. In her role there, she asked that a specific committee be formed to study the crisis of family homelessness. Now, Mayor, did I even scratch the surface explaining family homelessness here in Central Florida?
You know, it's really very complicated. And when you talked about we're not out of the recession yet, we're really very much a tale of two cities right now, because we have a very low unemployment rate. We have rebounded extremely well. There are so many things that are going right in Orange County right now. And at the same time, we have the highest rate of homelessness that we've had since I've lived here in 25 years. So how can you have both of these things going on at the same time? And what are the root causes? You know, we've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years looking at what's the cause of chronic homelessness, the people that you typically see on the street. Oftentimes mental illness or a physical handicap has led them to the place they are. And as a community, we've come together to look at solutions for that group of people. Veterans homelessness, much easier, but when you talk about families, there's so many different situations, and oftentimes, unlike the chronically homeless that you see, families, you don't see them.
Right.
They're tucked away. They're in hotel rooms, and I've seen some of those hotel rooms, and you might say, okay, well, that's shelter. When you have a family, you have 2 kids, 3 kids, and a mom and dad, and the kids are living together in a single bedroom hotel room, and maybe they're there for 3 or 4 months, and then they're off to another hotel room, or to live in their car, or to live with family members. That's not housing the way children need to be housed. That's not the kind of security that they need. That's not the kind of accommodations they need to grow up to be healthy individuals with a good, strong mind, self, and self-esteem. So in a lot of ways, we have this hidden problem that is affecting way too many of our children.
It really is just heartbreaking.
It is. It is.
I kind of describe it as the invisible homeless.
Yeah.
How should we define a homeless family?
Well, this is interesting because there's 2 different definitions. One definition is the homeless family that is truly without shelter, that is living in the woods, in a vehicle. Then there's a much larger population, and that's the Department of Education's definition of homelessness, and it's what we use here in Orange County. And that's people that are living in motel rooms, people that are staying temporarily with family members. You know, we all maybe think that makes sense, and for a short period of time, sure, families are there to support families, but that's not a long-term permanent solution. And so that's how we're looking at homelessness, is the population in our community that oftentimes is working. A lot of times, believe it or not, we are talking about families where mom and dad are both working. Sometimes, I mean, in some of these cases, we've got dads doing 2 jobs. Mom is working different shifts. They're coming home, they're trying to raise their kids, and they can't either afford an apartment, or they're shut out of the market because they've either been evicted, or they've been arrested, they have some sort of a credit problem. There are a lot of things that become barriers to families that are working, that are trying to provide for their kids. So I think part of what we need to do as a community is you can't solve a problem that you don't acknowledge you have. Right. And it's tough to talk about. We'd all like to pretend it doesn't exist, but that's a cruel thing to do when we're talking about so many people and so many children, and it's the wrong thing to do. And so we're talking about it. The next thing is to understand, and you have to understand the causes of the problem. As I pointed out, we're not talking about lazy people that just don't want to work and want to live on welfare. We're talking about hardworking people that, you know, maybe from a medical emergency in the family, or a car accident, or some other tragedy has kicked them off of the path they were on, and suddenly they find themselves unable to make their rent, and out on the street and into a motel or into a shelter.
You're aware of the problem, but this report had to be eye-opening. One in 50 families in Orange, Osceola, Seminole counties are experiencing homelessness. Do they have some place to go?
There are places for families to go. There are shelters, there are emergency shelters, there are transitional shelters. And so when I saw the numbers, I wish I could tell you I was shocked, but we knew the magnitude of the problem. We've been beginning to understand that the problem is oftentimes hidden because parents don't want to come forward and acknowledge the situation, a lot of times out of fear that Department of Children and Family Services might think that they're not providing for their kids. They might lose their kids. So there's reasons why the numbers have been understated for a while. But the other thing that concerned me when I read the report was the rate at which we are getting these families back into housing. And when I talk about housing, I'm not talking about owning your own home. I'm talking about just being able to rent an apartment and know you have a one-year lease, and you know your kids know where they're coming home, and they know they can do their homework, and they're living in a suitable environment. So this report really pointed out to me that there are a number of things that we're not doing as well as we could. The good news about that is we have a path and a direction to go forward. Bad news is, shame on us that we haven't done it sooner.
Right.
But this report, the commission, the committee that we formed, I think has done an excellent job. And probably one of the most difficult things for a community of our size is that homelessness isn't a City of Orlando problem, or an Orange County problem, or a Seminole County problem. We have 4 counties, 3 that are in our network, but 4 counties that all are so closely intertwined geographically and from a work standpoint that we need all of our counties working together. We have so many nonprofits that provide services and support, but a lot of them are rowing in different directions. We have a faith-based community that cares dearly, but each of them had their own programs to provide food or to provide clothing. We all need to be on the same page, or we're not going to effectively utilize the resources that we can gather to not just help people have a meal for today, but have a home for tomorrow.
So how do you get everyone on the same page, from the different agencies to the different charities to the different church groups? How do you get them on the same page, on the path to try and end family homelessness?
You know, that's probably one of the things that I'm most encouraged about, because it's hard. Getting people to change what they're doing is hard. A couple of things that we've done. We took a trip to Houston last year to look at how they were dealing with chronically homeless. And we had so many people from this community that came together and went on that trip. And when you see somebody else succeeding at a problem that we are not succeeding at, and you have everybody there together listening and learning, you come back with this sense of unity and commitment. Just the trip alone, and having everybody talking and thinking and opening up their minds to new ways of doing things. So we did the same thing with family homelessness just 2 weeks ago. We went to Salt Lake City. Salt Lake is known as one of the great success stories when it comes to homelessness in general. And 70 people signed up for that trip and went with us for 2 days out in Salt Lake City. And that that is a big part. People wonder why do you travel? Couldn't you just read a book or make a phone call? Taking everybody out there and physically seeing what they've done and meeting with the experts that have helped lead that charge, the nonprofits, the faith-based community, the government leaders, all of them, to hear what are they doing and how do they do it. I think we all came back saying, okay, there's no question, we can do this, we're going to do this.
So what is Salt Lake City doing and succeeding at that Central Florida can take and implement?
They've done a great job when it comes to chronically homeless and veterans homeless. They acknowledge families are more difficult. I think we all know that. A couple of things that they have done is really work with landlords. The challenge for us is that oftentimes there are apartments there. They're either out of reach financially or they're out of reach because of these barriers we discussed. So working directly with landlords and assuring them that there is there's protection for them, that they're not out on a limb, they're not doing this on their own, that we are here as a community, that there's a backstop if there's a problem with a renter. That's an important part, and they've really championed that. Aligning everybody, the faith-based community, the nonprofits. They have smaller number of nonprofits, that makes it a little easier, but saying to everybody, you know what, the model that you had last year and the year before that isn't the model that's going to work. We need to all use the model that's going to work. And so those are some of the things. They're also really taking on an issue that I know is crucial to this, and that's making sure that we have more affordable family housing in our community. Even if you have no credit history problems, you have no arrest record, nothing else that's a barrier, the rental rates are out of kilter with what many of our working families can afford. And that is not coming back on its own. That's not happening. The demand is there, and the rates continue to go up. So we're really looking at a coordinated process. We're working together with Seminole County, Osceola County, Lake County, and Orange County. I've asked my planning team to pull together everybody, and let's come up with something we can all agree on to promote the kind of affordable rental units that we need in our communities so that there is a place where working families can live.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that, plus a timeline when we can get this system in place. But first, it might be a good time to take our first break. When we return, Mayor Jacobs and I will talk specifics about helping families in need, and we'll get into the fear that families who need help, what they deal with every day. I'm Jamie Sey, and this is Flashpoint on News 6. Welcome back to Flashpoint. I'm Jamie Sey, along with Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs. The mayor is also heading up Central Florida's effort to help families in crisis. Mayor, I want to put a graphic on the screen that gets to the heart of the problem of family homelessness. According to the family homelessness report we've been talking about, the income needed to afford a two-bedroom apartment in Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties at fair market value is $3,360 a month. That's a little more than $40,000 a year. So that comes to a wage of $18.90 an hour. A full-time worker who earns minimum wage doesn't even come close to that. So how do you create housing when there's so little affordable housing?
That is probably one of the most difficult problems that we have in this community. We came out of the recession and so many people moved from home ownership to rental that the demand for rental has gone through the roof. I think anybody who's renting sees that happening. The numbers that you just pointed out really highlight the depth of the problem that we have. There's a couple of things that we do. One, there are rental assistance programs that the federal government offers. Utilizing that as much as we possibly can is a part of the equation. And then building more apartment complexes, encouraging, incentivizing, requiring. We're looking at which option we use. Is it a mandate or is it an incentive? To have apartment developers that build mixed-use apartments. By that, what I mean is that a portion of the apartment will be regular market rate apartments, and a portion will be set at a rate that's affordable for very low income families. And by doing that, we create not a whole apartment complex of people that are struggling financially, because we really want our communities to be integrated. We want our children growing up in an environment with children of all walks of life. We don't want to create what we used to think of as projects. That's not what we're That's not healthy and good for the families or for the children. So that's a program that we are working to develop. Orange County, we have a couple of properties that we're actively pursuing developers to build these types of mixed-use projects that would have a certain percentage of all of the units that would be maintained at a very low affordability rate, and that would be available for families. But on a grander scale, that's why we're working together. That's why we're coordinating with Osceola County, Seminole County, and Lake County to see what can we all agree on as a proposal that we could bring to our boards about how we either encourage or require apartment owners and developers to set aside more units that are available for the very low income in our community.
When you think about struggling families, when you think about children who don't have permanent housing, the struggle they're going through, there's a sense of urgency. You want to act and help these people now.
Yeah.
But
yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
But to get a system in place to get everybody on board, all the different agencies, to get everyone on board, to create this system, it requires patience too. What kind of timeline are you looking at? What are your goals?
Well, and I think you've articulated it so well, because too much patience, we won't get anything done.
Yeah.
I often say that in government, patience, it may be a virtue, but not in government, because it's hard to make changes, and you need to have a certain degree of impatience to make the kind of changes that you need to make. But at the same time, we do have to have a very coordinated system so that we make sure that the assistance that we're providing is going to the right people and the people most in need. If we fail at that, this whole effort falls apart. So it is important that we get that right. Yeah. We are hoping by early next year, the two properties that I talked about, we're hoping to be moving forward. Of course, that takes approvals. It takes time to build. I'm hoping that in the first half of next year, our boards, all four county governments, are coming back with what are we going to do collectively to encourage the kind of developments that we need. And then more immediately is looking at what are those programs and grants that we can get from the federal government to help the families that we have today with rental assistance. And we already have conducted our first landlord summit, and the goal of that is landlords, whether you have a large apartment complex or a small apartment complex. If you care about this issue, come to the table, we'll work with you. Let's see what units you can provide. You know, it might be one or two. It doesn't have to be 30 units in an apartment complex, one or two here, one or two there. Let's get our families housed, and let's get the units that you have that are open occupied. So we're doing that immediately. So we're kind of taking a multi-pronged approach. The things that we can do right now, we're doing right now. The things that will take a little bit longer are important to do. When's the best time to plant a tree? 50 years ago. When's the next best time? Right now. So the things that we're doing today when it comes to creating more affordable housing will take some time to realize, but if we don't start today, it will never happen. So I think that's that sense of balancing urgency with patience.
The report says that 1 in 50 families in Central Florida will experience homelessness in a year. However, that number could be more because there's a fear factor from families who are in crisis, who don't want to say, we need help. Talk about that fear factor.
Absolutely. I mentioned before when Eatonville had to condemn a motel complex because of some very serious health and safety issues. When I went out there that evening to visit with the families to assure them that we were going to get them housed and stay with them through this crisis, one of the dads didn't want the camera anywhere near, was very concerned about what that might mean to his ability to keep his children. And that's just one example. That is a major concern that our families have, that a lot of families have. And we also need to do our best to reassure families that that's not what this is about. This isn't about taking children away from families. This is about helping all of us and all of them provide better for their families.
This is a mission that all of Central Florida really needs to get behind. We're going to talk about
Yes.
that
Yes,
coming back. We'll be
absolutely.
back with Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs in just a moment. This is Flashpoint on News 6. Mayor, many people believe the first step to solving a problem is admitting there's a problem. You and I know there's a problem with family homelessness here in Central Florida. Do you think the community is aware of the scope of this problem?
No, I don't think so. And that's why I was so grateful to you and to Channel 6 for giving us this invitation to have this conversation. The problem is much bigger than I think most people realize, but it's solvable. And we have a very caring community. And I think that the more people that understand that we have children who are living in just unthinkable conditions through no fault of their own, and that we can do something about it. So I think I would ask that this is the season we always give. There's a role for every citizen in this community, whether it's giving a couple of dollars, whether it's reaching out to your church. We have a program set up for faith-based communities, for our churches to basically adopt individuals and families. There's something for everybody. Reach out to our commission. Let us know that you want to be engaged and involved, and we'll find a role and a place.
Is this a tough sell?
Well, you know, no, it's not a tough sell because we all love children. And I think that once we understand the situation and why these kids are in this situation and why moms, single moms are in this situation, whether it's domestic violence or one of their kids got, you know, very ill and they couldn't keep their job while they were caring for their children. Every situation is different. I don't think it's a tough sell, but it needs a sell. People need to know that we have the problem, and they need to know that they really can make a difference.
Mayor Jacobs, thank you so much for your time. If you would like to help, you can donate to rethinkhomelessness.org. That's Flashpoint for this week. I'm Jamie Sey. Thank you for watching, and have a great Sunday.